The author really went, what if I wrote Shrek fan fiction? And what if we had a main character who wanted to fuck Shrek? Hello, welcome to my channel and today's video where we are going to be going over the top 20 romantasy books of 2023. So this is going to be specifically the top 20 nominated books for the Goodreads Choice Awards. So this year, for the first time ever, Goodreads decided to separate fantasy books into like core fantasy and romantasy, and I could not be more thrilled about this because, you know, it gives us so many more books to be nominated, so many more book options to look at, and I've been feeling for a long time now like they do need to be separated because it doesn't give us enough choice. And there are very distinct, a lot of the time, not always, but I do find that there's distinct audiences between like certain types, like more classical epic fantasy and romantasy. And no, I loved both, but there are quite a few people who don't. And you know, I think it's great to have this variety. And I'm also so insanely excited that we just got 20 more books to talk about and a bunch more that I read for this video and I probably wouldn't have otherwise. So welcome to today's video. I am really excited about this. I've been spending the last few weeks reading all of these books and just so excited to finally sit down and talk about them. So what we're going to be doing, just the format of this video, I am going to be talking from books from 20th place to first. So I'll be going in ascending order from the least amount of votes to the top, because at this point the awards are well over. We have the winner. It's been quite a while. I've just taken my time getting here. So we're going to be doing that. I'm also going to be doing this more vlog style because I just don't want to sit down here and talk about 20 books for the next hour. I would much rather take you along with me on a few days and just talk about books here and there. Maybe it'll be a bit more interesting for all of us. And also, I just physically cannot sit here and talk for that long without going crazy. So welcome to the video, and I hope you guys are excited as I am. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and let's dive in. Well, hello. Let's start talking about these books while I get ready this morning. So like I said earlier, we're going to be starting at number 20, going up to number 1. And yeah, I'll just keep talking about these books throughout today. It's my little foundation. Book number 20 was A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is one that I'm actually a little bit surprised at how lowly it's rated. And I think part of that is that it definitely felt more YA. And I think that kind of maybe impacted people's ratings. But so in this one, we are in a world where like there's several different kingdoms. All of them are named after a different gemstone. And we are following somebody, I forget what kingdom exactly she's from, but the Onyx kingdom attacks them. And her brother had been a deserter from the kingdom that they lived in. And because of that, soldiers were coming to get him from the Onyx. They were just like following him and track them to this family's home. And in order to save her family's life, we're following this girl who basically offers herself up for them. So she's a healer. She has these magical healing powers, and she offers herself as a healer to the Onyx Kingdom. And yeah, she just goes to live at their war camp. Then as she's at this camp, she meets the king of the Onyx Kingdom, a bunch of soldiers, and starts to learn more about what they are doing, what their goals are, and why they are invading these other kingdoms, learning more about her magic of others, the potential existence of Fae, because apparently up to this point it's been very like Fae are believed to be wiped out. And she and the king start to fall for each other as she's kind of like his healer. I overall actually did quite like this one. I definitely feel like it was missing things, and it did feel, the writing itself felt a little bit younger, but overall I actually did think this one was pretty fun. I really enjoyed the world that we were in, and it's definitely one that I'm like very curious to see, my bronzer, very curious to see where the world will be going from here. So I actually am like very highly excited for the next edition of this book. And I'm kind of surprised that this is one of the lowest rated, or this is the lowest rated one, because honestly I think that it was like pretty decent. And you know, there's other ones on this list that are not that at all. But yeah, I think this one was pretty fun. So next on this list we have A Court This Cruel and Lovely, and I believe the author's name is Stasia Starr. So in this, we're again in a world where, well, we're in a world where magic is basically outlawed. So every citizen of this world goes through this, like, I feel like I'm gonna call it like a ritual wherein they're a child and they basically cede their magic to the king and the kingdom. And when you turn 18, you go through another ritual and you get your magic back. But anybody who's gone through this ritual and have not gotten rid of their magic, they are hunted down and killed. And not only them, but their entire family, because they are deemed too dangerous to live. Like, there's something about them that this ritual doesn't work on. So we are following a young girl who it's coming up to her 18th birthday, and she knows if she goes through with this ritual, it's going to be exposed that she's had magic this entire time. So she goes on the run to try and save her family, but not really. And she's trying to save her life, trying to save her families. And she comes in contact with this group of mercenaries, and they're traveling together through the realm. And then at one point, I really enjoyed that part of it. Then at one point, I feel like the story drastically changed and she decided to start trying to take down the kingdom or get revenge for people like her. And in this part, she posed as, actually, I guess she kind of got involved with this rebellion group and then started posing as a maid for the queen. And through there, they're like, you know, trying to take down the kingdom from within and save all of these rebels and people with magical abilities like hers who are in prison there. We then find out that like this rebellion group that she had been traveling with, so I guess they're more of like mercenaries. They have a bit more to them than we'd been taught, you know, and they're just working kind of together to take down this kingdom and structure that's in place for people with magical abilities, and unveiling all of the secrets of why things are the way they are. I really, really enjoyed the first half of this book, but then, I don't know, a part when it started to, when they got to the kingdom and they were doing all of this stuff to try and take down the king and stuff, something about it just like fell completely off for me. And I don't know, I just lost interest in it. Like, I feel like it just went a different way than I wanted. And yeah, I wasn't quite as into it after that, unfortunately. So this one was like a 3-star for me. Like, it was very okay. It felt very much like pretty much every other fantasy romance out there, but this one was fine. It just wasn't really anything that spectacular. So like, I definitely feel like it deserved to be on the lower end of this list. Now, I'm doing a few of these videos where I'm reading the top 20 of nominees in certain categories. And despite saying that I think like romantasy is my favorite genre, and this is like the one that I was most excited to film, I think that I definitely have the most number of either DNFs or books that I just would not read in this one. And a lot of them are series continuations that I saw and I was like, no way I'm picking that up. And the perfect example of this is our next book, which is A Queen of Thieves and Chaos by K.A. Tucker. So this is the third book in a series, and I originally read the first installation like earlier, I would say it was earlier 2023. And I was so not into it. We, in this one, we're following a young thief from New York, modern time New York, who is recruited by this mysterious woman. And she's recruited because she said, like, I have this task that you need to complete, blah, blah, blah. I will pay you handsomely, whatever. And so she agrees to do it, and then undergoes this like spell, something that basically transports her to a parallel world. So like her spirit is brought over to the body of another person in another world. And so she basically wakes up in the body of this princess in like kind of a medieval-esque type world who had just been like, I don't know if she had been imprisoned at this point, but she'd just been captured for having murdered the royal family. And she comes in the midst of this and is trying to like kind of clear her name, because she's like, okay, this was not me. Trying to fit into this like fantasy world, and also like, yeah, find a way to live here, because she kind of quickly realizes that she is stuck in this fantasy world. And people there have magical abilities, there's vampires, there's all this stuff, and it's just like really trying to follow her as she figures out this world and deals with the consequences of having been basically imprisoned for murder. And she is, yeah, so she is in the body of this princess. Everybody thinks that she's this princess, and she's also trying to convince people that like, no, this wasn't me. I'm a different person. I really didn't enjoy the first book. I thought it was like something about the pacing was weird, something about the plot, like nothing actually interested me that much. Like there was nothing that gripped me, nothing that really made me want to keep reading it. And like the first book just really did not work for me. So I did make an effort. I did try to start reading the second one, and I'd say I got about 20% in before I realized I was like, I do not give a single fuck about what's happening. There's no part of me that cares. There's no part of me that's interested, nothing that wants to keep going. And I was even listening to it on audio, and like 20% in, I don't think I could have told you a single thing that actually happened in that book. So I really took that as a sign as I'm DNFing this series. There is no way I'm going forward. So I didn't read A Queen of Thieves and Shadows. I don't know if it's any good, but based on my personal experience, I don't like this series, and I don't think it's really worth your time. Okay, so next we have The Rule of the Aurora King. So this was actually the first book in this series, The Trial of the Sun Queen, I think is what it was called. This was, funnily enough, like one of the books that we read for my in-person book club, where we read like fantasy romance. And the first book was like really I don't know, I would kind of describe it like The Bachelor. It was kind of like a bachelor competition where a bunch of women were competing to be like the potential queen to this king in this kingdom. And they're going through all these different trials. So it was kind of like The Bachelor X Hunger Games. But this one really veered a completely different direction. And we're following the same main character, but she was in a different kingdom and kind of dealing with like this potential political battle, getting kind of on the side of like this conflict against the king from the first book. And also her just kind of embracing her heritage and like bringing forth information on who she was and why, like all of these unknown secrets from the first book, I guess. And I don't know, like I thought it was really okay. Like I don't think that this did anything that interesting. I don't think this world is that great, and like I don't think this is one that I'm going to continue past this book. It was good in the sense that like it really did resolve a lot of questions from book one. It really did get more into this world, and it was like really exploring this world and this magic and these characters more. So that was good. And a lot of it did feel though like a setup for a potential next book, because I do think this is going to be a trilogy. And yeah, that was kind of how I felt about this one, is that it was just really a setup for the continuation of the series. And I didn't overall enjoy it that much just because, like, I don't know. I feel like, again, I wasn't super invested in this. And it's really a shame because I think that this one could have been interesting. And especially the first one, I thought that the premise was so interesting, but it just didn't quite lead up to what I was hoping it would be. And I think that was kind of the same deal with this one. So I gave The Rule of the Aurora King 3 stars. I am a little surprised at how lowly ranked the next book we're going to talk about is, and that is just because I did thoroughly enjoy this one, and I really thought that it was such a fun read. And we're going to be talking about now Slaying the Vampire Conqueror by Carissa Broadbent. So at this point, I feel like Carissa Broadbent has become such a popular name in the fantasy romance realm, and she's had a lot of really popular books come out, like particularly in the last year or two, and I deeply enjoyed this edition. So this book takes place in the same world of the Crowns of Nyaxia series, which we will be talking about again later, but this is a realm with like a bunch of different continents where there's different types of vampires ruling on each one. Like they have different powers, different abilities, and we're also following like this war between all of the different vampire courts and the humans as well. So in this one, we are following a woman who's a member of this assassin league, but it's really like, not really an assassin league. She's like a member of this cult, and they worship this goddess, and they do assassinations on her behalf and work on her behalf. And she has been ordered that there's this new vampire who was landing on like the shores of their world, and they believe he's going to start conquering the world. So she has been sent to investigate him and then determine if he does need to be killed. And this cult, it has to be described as a cult. It's super interesting because in order to become basically like a priestess of it, they go through this intense training, and part of it is that they slowly lose their vision. So they get these drops in their eyes that slowly like render them completely blind, but they through this also get opened up to these other senses and magical abilities that basically like they can fully see just with a different magic. Yeah, different magic. And they're really like at the behest of everything the high priestesses say and everything that they are ordered. And it was just a really interesting world. So I did know that I really enjoyed this world because I have read the other 3 books, I guess, that have come out in this world. And Really enjoyed it. I really like Carissa Broadbent's writing. And this was a super, super interesting other take on like a different type of vampire, a different type of war that's happening, and just different types of people who live within this world. And again, like the different like gods and goddesses and mythology and all of this. So I deeply loved this one. Like I thought this was incredibly fun and probably honestly one of my favorites that I've read on this list. Plus it's definitely like, not just this book, but this entire world. It's really getting me back into my vampire romance era, and I can never be upset about that because I think that it is long overdue. We have not had enough great vampire books in a while, so thank you for this one. And yeah, if you didn't know, I gave this one a 5-star. So next we have Bewitched, which is kind of like a modern day witch book where we're following a woman who, like, her lifelong dream is to get into this prestigious witch university to further her magical education. But she has this magical power that or kind of a curse, I guess. But she has a curse where every time she uses her power, it kind of like, it takes a bit of her memories. So her memory is really unreliable because of that, and she really is missing a lot in life and is not really considered the most reliable because of that. She has been denied getting into the school like multiple times because every time she goes in, they're basically say like, your memory is a liability. We can't necessarily trust that you'll actually be able to keep up with the other students. But this time when she applies, it's like her 3rd time applying, they tell her that she can get in, but on the condition that she has to do a magical adventure. I guess every witch is expected to do some kind of like adventure before coming in and find an animal companion. So she randomly decides to go to Galapagos, and while there, she's in the air, like in her airplane, and she starts hearing this voice that's kind of like, oh, Empress, you've come back to me, blah, blah, blah. And there's this like crazy plane crash, which she saves everyone from. But she is wandering in the woods and comes across this tomb. And inside it is a warrior who's been imprisoned there for thousands of years, but is convinced that she is the reincarnation of his dead wife. So most of the story is that it's him escaping and coming after her for revenge, because not only does he think that she's the reincarnation of his wife, but also his wife was the one who imprisoned him in that tomb for thousands of years. So that is basically what happened in the story. I thought that the premise was interesting in this one, but the execution wasn't the most interesting. Like, I didn't necessarily love the writing, and I don't know, like I really did not get into a lot of what was happening in the story. Just I didn't feel invested that much, and I didn't really care about the main character or the love story or anything that's happening that way. Like, it was definitely okay, it had potential, but just something about it did not fully align for me, and it was a 3-star. Hello, a new day, a new chance to talk about some more books. Let me just put my hair up. I don't know if anyone else is the same way, but I can't do my makeup with my hair in my face, so here we go. And yeah, once again, while I get ready, we're just gonna talk about some more books. Sometimes for me, this is the easiest way to get this done. So here we are. So in number, I think 7 from lowest, we have A Fall of Ruin and Wrath by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first of 3 books that she has on this list. And it is the start of a new series. So it is the only one that's not like a sequel for her. And yeah. And I think I might be mistaken. I don't believe that this one took place within the same world as From Blood and Ash. So I think this is the only one that's like unique from that. So we're following I guess a courtier in this one who has this ability where she can basically see the future. She's able to, like, when she touches people, she's able to see their future, kind of see the immediate things that are going to happen to them, and that basically happens like every time she touches someone, she's able to see what their future has in store. So she's in a position where she is kind of like the courtier, kind of like a companion to this like lord, and works for him, like telling him everything that's going to happen. And I feel like I'm going to do a terrible job describing this one, because even though I did read it recently, I kind of already forget a lot of the finer points, which maybe that's an indication of how I feel. But there are these overlords, I guess, to this world who are sort of like angels. Are they angels? They're some kind of magical creature, and they rule all the mortals and the people. Like this lord that she serves, he is like, I guess, half angel, half human, whatever. And that's kind of like how it is with all the people who are in places of power. You have to be part of this, whatever. So yeah, as I'm kind of talking about this, I'm losing, like, a lot of the details are not coming to me. And this feels like a very, very bad sign, because I thought I liked this more than I did. But we're following our main character as she releases one of these like angel beings from, he was captured and being tortured, and she releases him. And then he comes to the court and is doing something. And there's like this whole plot about like something being overthrown, some people being tracked down. Like, really, I'm blanking on so much of what happened in this one. And I did read this like a few weeks ago, which this feels like truly a terrible sign for what I thought. Because I walked out of this one and gave it a 4-star. I really, really liked it. And I was kind of shocked about it because historically, JLA books and me do not agree. So I really, really thought that I had enjoyed this one, but now the fact that I can't remember like much else besides that is making me really reevaluate how I feel, because now I'm thinking I probably didn't like this that much. It probably does not deserve that 4-star. And yeah, I will say though, I like her like starts to new series. I don't like her continuation, so it's one that I probably will never read the sequel to. But I did like this one in the moment, and now I'm just gonna, yeah, so I guess for this one we will say in the moment I liked it, now I am reevaluating everything. The next book is like, again, another one that we actually used for my book club in real life, which we do like all fantasy romance, and we try to do, not always, but sometimes like new and hyped releases. So the next one is The Coven by Harper L. Woods. So this one we are following a young girl who goes to, by young I mean like 18 or something, who goes to this magical school. And there are some weird things in this world. God, I feel like I'm gonna not be able to talk about this one either, but there's this magical school for all of these different magical families, and actually not all magical, just magic users in general. And each one of them has like certain types of, no, there's different families, and each one of them has a different type of magic associated with it. So we are following the last remaining member of this one family that had thought to be extinct. And because of that, because there's only one member left, she gets the like brunt of the magic. So that's kind of how it works, is that it spreads the magic across the family. And then because she's the only one left, she has like all of this family's magic. And also, I can't remember what it is, but it was some type of like unique or more powerful magic. And while there, this is kind of a romance between this witch and the vampire professor there. So the headmaster of the school is a vampire, and he and our main character have like a bit of a connection, and they really like are just fighting their attraction. But he is like very, very obviously into her, and just like making that super obvious, super clear that he's into her. And it's just kind of them like figuring this out. This is one that I thought was like a very solid 3 stars, because it did do some fun things in it, and fun in like the sense of, you know, fantasy romance books. But at the same time, I don't necessarily love the romance. Like, the romance did really nothing for me. And it left on in an interesting spot where I really, really did not see it going. And it took like such a complete 180 from where the book was, which, you know, that's an interesting thing. Like, that can always, sometimes that like really, really works. And I'm not sure if this one was quite enough for me to want to continue on the series. I don't think I will, but it was interesting. And that's kind of all I'll talk about it. It was like just very much a vampire witch headmaster student romance. You know, the more we're going over this, the more I realize how mediocre the majority of these books are, and I'm kind of feeling really disappointed in everything that came out. And now kind of second guessing if having this romantasy category was a good thing, because I'm feeling like not many of these books were that good. So the next one that we have is The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. And this one was, it was actually in a really cool world where there was something about like the magic system itself was something to do with poisons, and a lot of people would like purposely poison themselves because it gave them some kind of, it was either like prolonged lifestyles or their lives, or it like gave them access to certain magics. But it was really interesting, and we were following a girl who had this like really unique type of magic, and because of that she kind of gets recruited in by like a prince of the realm and like a monk for this like priesthood that worships this death god or something. And she kind of gets involved in this plot of trying to figure out what is happening with this potential war, because the kingdom has somebody to the south of them that's like potentially going to attack. So she has this ability. So this ability that she has, she's able to reanimate corpses. And with that, they're able to question like these dead bodies that have come back from the front lines and kind of get a sense of what is going on in this war. And then at the same time, because she has this magic that has never been seen before, it's starting to be investigated, and they're starting to like really look into where it came from, what this means for the world, what this means for the kingdom, like what all these repercussions are. And it's a bit of a love triangle between her, the prince, and the, I guess, priest, monk, whatever it was. And overall I thought this one was pretty fun. I did find it slightly mediocre in the sense that it just like didn't give me everything that I wanted, and it didn't really go as deep as I thought it could have been in a lot of these themes and a lot of the things happening. Like I feel like the author in this one really focused primarily on this idea of a love story or a love triangle, and then that was the biggest premise of it. That was kind of the focus, and I felt like it could have went a lot more interesting places than just that. So I will say this one is another 3-star. A Game of Gods by Scarlett St. Clair. I just didn't read. So she has this really popular Hades and Persephone series, and there's I think 3 or 4 books out of it by now, and I read 2 of them. I didn't like them and decided to DNF this series. So then this is from the second book or second or third, I think it's third book in a spin-off series, which is the exact same books but told from Hades' perspective. So apparently you do get more information, you do get more of his life, like a bunch of different things happening that you didn't see in the original series, but it is like basically the same story. So since I didn't like the original series at all, I did decide to give this one a try. I did try it. I read the first book, hated it, thought it was terrible. So now I'm not forcing myself to read the rest of it. So this is yet another one that I didn't read. And I do feel a bit guilty that there's so many of them that I didn't read on this list, but I think like pretty much all of them were just like continuations of series that I didn't like. And yeah, I do have editions of a lot of these books, by the way, but I rearranged my bookshelves a little bit ago, and now I have like no idea where anything is. So this is another one where I do own an edition of, but who knows where it is. So next we're going to talk about the Jair. This one I really enjoyed. I really thought this was fantastic, and I think we're getting to the top 10 now, which makes sense because a lot of these are definitely higher quality, I find. So we're following a kingdom or a world, I guess, where there's 4 different kingdoms, and one of them, the Jair kingdom, had been completely wiped out about 10 years before, and it was basically became outlawed to be a member of this kingdom. So to the point where anybody who's still living who managed to survive this massacre, they are hunted down, and if somebody finds out that you are a Jair, you are murdered, and anybody who harbored you also. So we're following a young woman who was the princess of the Jair court. She managed to get away from this massacre and has been spending the last like however many years on the run, living in small towns and just trying to like live a quiet life and keep away from any type of negative attention. But there is a prince from one of the other kingdoms who is just kind of traveling around because he's looking for a champion for these games that take place every few years. And these games take place between all of the kingdoms, and I'm still a little confused, but I'm not sure if it's like what the prize of it is, if it's some either like bragging rights or if you get some type of power. But he is looking for a champion, and he comes across our main character and is very impressed by her and decides to basically forced her to be his champion by saying that, like, basically holding her friends hostage and using that as an incentive to come fight for him. So a lot of this book that we are following these games that happen. And I really, really liked this book. I thought it was so incredibly interesting. I love the world building. I love the characters. The writing was fantastic. And it's one that I'm really, really excited to get back into this world and to continue on with, because yeah, just something about it really, really worked well for me. My only thing is, like, there were a few little things, like these games, I don't really feel like there was necessarily a point to them. I think it was just the author kind of wanted to have some kind of trial aspect, and I felt like they were a little misplaced in the sense that it didn't really make sense for the plot, but it did add something fun. But yeah, it was just a little confusing there. Right, so now we're at the second of Jennifer L. Armentrout series in this list, and we have A Flesh in the Fire. So I do believe that this is book 2 to An Ember in the Ashes. This is a prequel trilogy or prequel series to the From Blood and Ash series. I did read the first book and really, really liked it, but when I went to pick this one up, I think I read 2 pages and just kind of hit this point where I was like, I literally could not care less. I am good with the story where it is, and I could not get myself to do anything else. So yeah, very, very fine having not read this one. The first book was really fun. It was definitely interesting. In my mind, the series ended there, and there's no need in my mind for any continuation to it. And like a thing I find with JLA, I do like her first books in series, but then I find that the rest of them just meander and go off the rails, and just what she does in like 4 books she could have done in 1, you know? So I never really tend to enjoy continuing on in her series. The Hanging City. This one, the author really went, what if I wrote Shrek fan fiction? And what if we had a main character who wanted to fuck Shrek? And you know, it was good. It was shockingly fun. And I am very, very shocked at how much I enjoyed this one. And just taking that premise, I respect it. I respect it a lot that she really decided to go there and that she actually did a good job with it. So yeah, we're following a human who is on the run for some reason. We don't really get a resolution until towards the end about why, but she decides to take refuge in this city of troll people. So there is the city of the trolls, and they allow humans to come in and take refuge, but they have to be there for like very practical reasons. You know, they have to actually have a purpose, and they are very much viewed as second-class citizens, or like the bottom of the bottom, because there is a caste society, and like humans are casteless. They are nothing in there. They are primarily only there for service roles. But our main character, she has this weird magical ability where she's able to cause like intense fear in people. So if she like turns her magic on, it just sends people into this like intense fit of fear. And she, because of this, is recruited into the army. And like, she is one of the only humans who's ever done this. She is incredibly rare, and she's kind of given like a little bit more status, a little bit more position within society because of that. And she is assigned a mentor, like somebody who she works alongside. And while doing this, she lives with her mentor and her brother. And she and her brother, who is like an engineer, he is one of the scholarly trolls, they fall in love. And yeah, it was interesting. It definitely went there in a way that I wasn't expecting, but I do have to say, I think this was very fun for what it was. And if you're not scared away by that like tagline of potentially a little Shrek fanfic, I'd recommend it. I definitely would. We are powering through, and we're gonna get this done today because I definitely need to finish off this video and actually get it posted. So let's talk about the next book, which this one is 8 from the top, I think. The next book that we have to talk about is The Hurricane Wars, and I love this one. I'm just gonna straight up say that I love this. This was incredibly like Raylo coded, and I am somebody who that works so incredibly well for, so this was not at all an issue for me. Though I do know that for a lot of people that's very much not necessarily something that works, not necessarily something they're into. But yes, for me, Raylo is the way to go. So much of this book too, which is vibes and no thoughts in my head. But we are following the prince to this kingdom that has basically he has this dark magic and they've wiped out everybody in this world who has a light magic, and he is fighting this war against a woman who is on the other side of the war, I guess, and she has this light magic. She's one of the last remaining people to have it. So it's the two of them fighting basically at the forefront of these wars. And a lot happens. There is so much else that happens in it, but to not risk spoiling anything, that is the forefront of it, is that there's this war of his kingdom trying to take over the rest of the world and form an empire. And she is one of the few like rebellion people who are fighting back against it. And she has this magic power that she is one of the few people left who has it. They are hardcore at, fighting each other, and it is just really, really fun. I really, really like this. I love the world. The magic was interesting. The characters were fun. There's just a lot of things about them like really being opposing on this war and falling for each other, but still fighting it and not wanting to admit that they're falling for each other. And that worked very, very well for me. So yes, I did really deeply love this one. And it was 4-star. I'd say 4-star. I think 4-star is a good rating for this one, but this one I would definitely recommend. I know there's been a lot of people saying it wasn't that great, but yes, it really is. It is really, really fun. The next book we're going to be talking about is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. So this one is the first, I think it's the first adult book within her world of like Kingdom of the Wicked, Kingdom of the Cursed. It's taking place in the same world, following different characters. And I will straight up say, I enjoyed the first book in that original trilogy, hated the second one, couldn't continue on past that because it felt like so much of it she was just going for smut over plot and purposely just setting up the book entirely so that it would be smut with no vibes. Smut with no thought is actually how I'd say it. And yeah, this one kind of followed the same pattern. We're following the Prince of Envy, I think he is, and as he's on this like journey to like complete this puzzle that the Fae have laid out, because he needs the reward that he'd get for completing this thing to save his kingdom. And he comes across a woman who is part Fae living in the human realm, and she is a painter, so he's kind of tasked with asking her to paint certain things for him and get involved in this like treasure hunt kind of. And it's their romance. And I really didn't like this one. I thought it was so insanely boring. There was nothing redeeming about it. Characters weren't interesting, plot wasn't interesting. Again, it was basically just smut with nothing else happening. And that is really not for me. So this is one that just like through and through did not work. I just found it so incredibly boring. There was nowhere near enough happening to render it interesting. And this one I should have DNF'd. I could tell so early on that I should have DNF'd it, but it ended up being a 2-star for me. Now we have Zodiac Academy 8, and I had started this series years ago. I got to book 4, I stopped, and I think it had been like 2 or 3 years since I picked it up again. But, for commitment's sake, I decided to dive back into the series and read up to the end of book 8. And I really kind of regret that. I think the series started off fun in a lot of ways. This is one of those series that I would almost say, like, there's a few books that fall into this realm for me, but it's one where I hate every moment of it while I'm reading. But as soon as I'm done, I'm like, look back and I'm like, wow, I enjoyed that. That was fun as hell. And then I spiral into the next book and I'm just propelling myself forward, trying to read these. And yeah, this definitely fell into that of like, I did not enjoy the reading process for any of them, but I was so addicted to see what happened. And I just had to keep going and seeing what happened. And were any of these books good? No, these were terrible. Like, I think truly that this is a really poorly written series. The characters are unlikable. The romance is nothing compelling, and it definitely has gone on way too long. I think this could have been like a 5-book series and it would have been great. There's too many things that have just been like going on for too long and are not interesting enough to keep the story going forward. And it's really like, especially books 7 and 8, I was noticing that a lot, where it felt like so much of it was filler material and so much of it just felt pointless, and like it was not actually progressing the story in any way. It was just giving these weird random things happening to kind of, I don't know, just keep writing for the sake of it. But I don't think that this series is really good anymore. And realistically, yes, I don't think that this series was good by any means, but it has definitely gone on for way, way too long. And has lost some of the things that I found made it interesting to begin with. So my rating is like a 2.5 on this one because I wish I liked it. I just kind of also regret having read that many of them because I don't think it was necessary. And I think I would have been much happier if I just stayed where I was on book 4 and did not continue past it. I did not read A Soul of Ash and Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Similar reason to the other series where I don't care. I'm not interested in finishing any of her series. I don't mind starting them. I don't mind reading the first book, but I do not trust her ability to continue a story or to write anything interesting. So I don't have any interest in continuing this series. I read, I believe, up to book 4 in this one before I realized how much I hated it. And truly that was, I think it was book 4 where I gave it a 1 star because I truly thought it was one of the most terribly written things I've read in ages. So yeah, this is a series I am not continuing. I have zero interest in, and yeah, for me, it's done. It's dead. The Ashes and the Starcurse King by Carissa Broadbent is the sequel to one of my favorite books of last year, which is The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. So oh, by the way, this is in the same world as Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. So I really, really loved the first book, obviously, and I do think that this one dropped considerably in quality. Not even in quality, like it was just more of the exciting things that made book 1 really interesting, which were like a competition, and it just kind of fell flat a little bit in the second one. And it's not that the book was bad by any means, it's just that a lot of those like really compelling things, like the competition aspect, I find it's always hard when you start a book in this type of thing and then it goes to just like general world, a war, whatever. It's kind of hard to find the footing of like where the world meets from there. But I really did like this book. It's a really interesting enemies to lovers story. We get a really cool like world building. It really brings vampires to the forefront, which it is time that vampires are back in the world and back in mainstream media. They never really left, but it's time they're back in fantasy romance. Yeah, this one's super fun. I really, really like this duology, and I think it's definitely a great one. The Serpent and the Wings of Night is by far the better book out of these two, but still worth the read. In the number 2 spot, we have Assistant to the Villain. And I think that the reason this was so popular is that it started off as kind of a TikTok thing where I think the author was like posting kind of like story updates as she went and just talking about the book, and so many people got invested because of that. But I thought this was incredibly fun. We're in some kind of weird fantasy world. The world building is very, very vague. If that, it's very vague, very non-committal, but it's giving the impression of potentially medieval fantasy world. And we follow a young girl who is recently unemployed, needs a new job, comes across the villain of the kingdom, and he offers her a job as his personal assistant. And he has a manor, he has an array of workers who work for him. He has like a very big like office system. And a weird amount of this book is just kind of like office politics, where he has all these workers and they have like internal politics with them. And it's the villain just kind of like dealing with trying to take down the king, because for some reason that we don't know, and trying to root out a traitor within his midst. I think this one you have to go in knowing that it is silly and not very serious, and if you think of it that way, you'll have an incredibly fun time with it. And I thought this was ridiculously fun. And yeah, it was silly, it was ridiculous, wasn't super serious by any means, and I thought it was so fun. I liked the characters, I liked the antics. It was just like a silly fun time. And yeah, I would definitely recommend this. I think it was fun. It was very, very fun. And then the winner for the romantasy series, for the romantasy book, and like really to nobody's surprise, I would be shocked if anyone's surprised by this, we have Fourth Wing. And this is my special edition that I have, which very pretty. But yeah, I don't really need to talk about the plot of this one because I'm sure everyone knows, but it is about dragon riders, and you know, I liked it a lot. I fully am on board with the Fourth Wing world, and I am fully here for how fun it is. You know what, like this is the one I voted for because yeah, I think that it was, out of all of these, the best romantasy book this year. It was incredibly fun, like great characters, very action-packed, and it was definitely one that kept you hooked. And really, what more can we ask for than a book that will like get you immersed and get you incredibly excited to keep going forward. So yes, I do think that this one deserved to win, and yeah, it was a great time. So I'm just gonna think, what would I say are my top 3 reads out of this list? I'm definitely gonna say Fourth Wing. Then I think I would also go with The Hurricane Wars and maybe The Sod Air. I think those I'm gonna say are my top 3 out of this entire list, and the ones that I think are most interesting and the ones that have really stuck in my mind and really like I found most immersive or most fun worlds, fun, like interesting times. Because, you know, for my romantasy, I just want something fun. I don't want anything super serious. I don't want to have to think too hard. I don't want anything too insanely complex. So I think those would be my top 3. Definitely, I mean, there's a few I didn't read, but my worst of them, probably Throne of the Fallen. I thought that was really, really bad. And yeah, like there's definitely a few I wouldn't recommend. Obviously none of the ones I read or didn't read I would recommend, or those series. I don't think any of them are worth checking out. A lot of the Jennifer L. Armentrout books wouldn't really recommend. But there we have it. Those are the top 20 romantasy books of 2023. If you've read any of these, let me know what you thought of them. Let me know what your personal favorite was from this list. And please stay tuned because I'm going to be doing another video of this for fantasy and for science fiction. So hopefully you will subscribe if you're interested, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.